Listen, we're going to get to the part of the show here we call the deep dive. It is where we get into a big topic that moves the needle. And today with our friend Rich Ingram, one of our new hosts here on the show who's joining us every Wednesday, we want to get into the endurance mindset. We want to get into this idea of mental strength is what ultimately helps you achieve your goals. Yeah, Johnny's got big muscles. Marty's got big muscles. I got the biggest muscles out of all of us. There's no doubt about that. But the reality is it's the mind that moves the mountain. And boys, 80% of success is mental, according to top athletes. Now, Rich, Carol Dweck, she's done some research that shows that people with growth mindset, those who believe they can develop their abilities, are more likely to succeed and overcome challenges. Rich, I'm going to throw this to you first, pal. As someone who has faced huge personal obstacles, no shit, how do you stay in a growth mindset when things get tough? How do you ensure setbacks don't become permanent barriers? Rich Ingram.
Yeah, so again, I've said this before. It was a little bit easier for me because after I lost my arm, I was put in a corner. I only had one way to go. I guess I had two ways. I could either become homeless and ask for your money on the street corner, or I had to move forward. And so for me, everything just became another part of the day. And that has been ingrained in me. It doesn't matter what happens. I'm dealing with an event planner that keeps changing things on me. And I don't know how many times I've changed my flight and all this stuff. And I told her last night when she texted, I was like, look, change is inevitable and it's just part of the process. There's like, that's out of my control. And it's just another problem that I have to solve. And I love Carol Dweck's book, coincidentally called Mindset. And she says there's either fixed or growth, right? And so in a fixed mindset, you don't think that you believe that all of your talent is etched in stone. And in that growth mindset, it doesn't matter that it's all about showing up and repetition. And no matter whether you fail or not, every failure is a learning opportunity to get better. And so for me, every time something gets hard, I look at it as, man, I'm going to grow here. When I'm running and it hurts so bad that I want to fall over and pass out and quit and stop, I just want to say, hey, man, I only got 5 more minutes to get better at this. And so that's how I look at it, is everything that happens to me is in a challenging, daunting situation is transforming me. And so that's how I keep going.
Powerful, brother. Powerful.
How do you get someone to, let's say someone's stagnant or complacent or they're doubting themselves? How do you get them to develop the growth mindset? What do you say to that person?
So now we're going to start off by defining our purpose and what our purpose is. And it's because we've said it before on the show that motivation, or let's call it willpower, is a horseshit word that gets depleted because it's one of our executive functions in our brain that gets depleted. So one, we start by finding purpose. Why are we doing this? And so when you look at the end state, and sports psychologists said this, athletes at the highest level, Marty, John, you guys know, like, you want to picture yourselves like, what does this look like? Who do I want to be? And if you can focus on that and figure out your purpose and why you're doing it, that is the true motivation. That's what's going to help you wake up in the morning and keep showing up. Now, regardless whether you get 5 minutes in or you get the planned hour in, just fucking make it and then show up the next day ready to go again. That's it.
Yeah. Hey, Johnny, I got a question for you, pal. Have you ever had a moment in your career? I know you're very diligent on habits and a very structured mindset. Have you had a moment in your career, Johnny, where a fixed mindset held you back? And if it did, how did you learn to shift that mindset to overcome that challenge? Because I got to think, Johnny, sometimes when we get so structured, we might put ourselves too tightly in a box. Have you experienced that, John?
100%. You can get so structured and you can live inside that loop so tightly that it can become almost like a hindrance, like you've created your own prison walls, so to speak. So what I'm big on when it comes to this is for me, it's easy to keep this at bay because I'm always moving around. When I'm going I'm just in different places. And so when I go to a different place, I still have my morning loop, but it's in a different environment, which changes it up. So if I wasn't a person that moved around a lot, I would have to be very careful of choosing to break the rhythm. And I would say break, I should just say alter the rhythm. Because when it comes down to it, you need your rhythm and your routine to evolve because you want to get better. So it's not just doing the same thing forever. You might have a rhythm, but each thing inside that rhythm is getting more challenging. That's what keeps you growing.
Yeah. Hey, we're talking mindset shifts that drive resilience here with Keith, John, Marty, and Rich Ingram here, Mornings in the Lab. I invite you to subscribe to the channel. I see you guys subscribe, and thank you very much for that. Subscribe, comment, and I see all your comments on the side as well. Double A Michael, thanks for your comments. Shinku Gold, thank you for your comments as well. I love all the things coming in here. And it's true, your mind is a tool that follows your bliss. That's what's got to get you going. Marty, question for you, brother. So I know that you've had your journey. You've had your journey through life, through athletics, through school, and so forth. But mental toughness isn't something you're born. It's trained, just like any muscle. How do you personally, Marty, train your mental toughness daily? You have rituals or habits that help you stay mentally sharp. What do you do, Marty?
Self-talk is big. That's one. How do you talk to yourself when things are good and when things are bad? Communicating with yourself. And like I always say, I think we talked about it yesterday and Monday, you're going to have obstacles. You're going to have things happen.
Yes.
What are you doing? What are you doing those? How do you overcome it? And just having a positive mindset there, being super positive and taking the steps to change it. Those are probably the two biggest things. I'm big on looking at the past. What did you do in the past to get through that? So those are big to me for mental toughness.
What about you, Rich?
And what do I do to train my mind for mental toughness? It's repetition. That's all it is. It's
you're in your own head doing your thing. You alluded to this a few minutes ago. You're like, okay, I got 5 minutes to go. Is that by you doing this repetitively on a daily basis? Is that what you do to train your mind, Rich?
100%, because it becomes ingrained. It's just like John talking about habits. It becomes a habit. Your thought process becomes a habit. So when it's like a trigger, this X happens and I'm acting or reacting in this manner because I've done it repetitively. And that's what we really want to achieve, is that repetitive action to create that habit. So there's no, what do I do here? It just happens.
Yes.
And John, I got a boiled down simple answer for this. And I know the guys will agree with me. Do difficult shit.
Yeah.
When you do difficult shit and you continue to realize, okay, I'm going to continue to challenge myself and do difficult shit, that's keeping your brain sharp. You're constantly adapting. You're constantly moving forward. And just like Rich said, it becomes a habit to do difficult shit. And when I say difficult shit, that's what people relate to. But really what it comes down to, it's difficulty is just all you're doing is addressing an obstacle. So don't look at it as, oh, this is hard. Oh, this is a challenge. Go get it.
And I think, John, you'll relate to this too, right? Where Shinku Gold comes and says each new plateau feels normal. And I spend time in the gym. So we all spend time in the gym. Isn't that true? Because once you hit that target you're looking to hit, you're like, okay, that's normal. Now I got to do it again. Right. And it's funny how that works with our brain, right? I see you smirking there, Richie.
No, yeah, you're exactly right. And I would even go a step further to not necessarily do hard things, because I like doing hard things. Yeah. I would go a step further to say do uncomfortable things.
Yes.
And so what that means is, oh, hey, I'm going to search for the parking spot that's close to the door. No, go park at the back of the parking lot. Oh, God, man, there's a mess right here. I'll do that later. Just train yourself to do these things just for a couple minutes. Just do what you don't want to do right now for a couple minutes. And that's a good starting point for that.
Speaking of uncomfortable, I know that my friend Christopher Martin here on the show has a box just out to his right on the floor. And I know that it was something that he was walking over and stepping over, wondering if he was going to build it. And I'm wondering, Marty, if that box has been built because you were like, I got to get to this. If he's shaking his.
I can't. The daggone concrete behind the wall. I literally can't. So,
oh no, we don't use that word on this show. Are you out of your mind? Come on, man. I'm gonna use your own words. Come on, man. We don't use can't. It's a challenge. It's difficult, yes, but you'll find a way.
Look, that's how. When I hire somebody to get the concrete behind the wall, do something, that's cool. I'm not doing that. That's not my.
But it's funny because when Rich is talking about putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations, I go, yeah, Marty's staring at a box that's going to put himself in an uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, it ain't there no more. That thing is in the corner. That thing is put away for the time being.
Hey, you're talking building resilience through an endurance mindset shifts that drive with Keith, John, C. Marty Fit, and Rich Ingram on Mornings in the Lab. We drop the show 8 o'clock Eastern time every single day, the only show to get you guys going. And at this time in the show, what we like to do, we like to invite some guy on the stage. Got some big traps, got a nice hat on his head, some great glasses, scratching the old beard there.
I'd like to meet this guy. Who is he?
Yeah, so we're gonna at this point, I'm just gonna do this. Ooh, there's his sound effect. Marty's gonna go touch his tip. Marty's gonna go for a stretch. Richie, you go figure something out, man. In the gym with John and Marty, 9 o'clock Eastern time, the only show on the planet that helps you guys get your day started, helps you not hit the snooze button, but most importantly, the only show that you can spend 50 minutes every single day with two experts, two guys who've lifted a couple things in their lifetime and put it down before. We're talking cupping, we're talking stretching, and so forth. But I'm gonna tell you guys something else. This is the only show, I'm bringing Rich up on here as well. This is the only show where we teach you about emptying the clip, and it's the only show where we teach you how to wipe your ass from both sides of your body so you can get a good stretch.
It's called thoracic twist, baby. You're working thoracic twist.
So I've never been on a show. I've never been a part of a conversation, Marty or Rich, where somebody has said to me, hey, man, as you're wiping your ass with your right hand, you might want to try the left hand as well. So that as you age, you can accentuate that thoracic twist and you can stretch your body better. So gentlemen, as you're going through it your day, empty the clip, tip 1. And then tip number 2 is wipe your ass with your opposite hand. You're going to get a good stretch in. How's that for advice here, guys?
That's pretty good.
Richie, comment on that.
Not sure how I would make that happen. I think, I don't know, I could wear a prosthetic.
I didn't think about that, Rich. Shit. Yeah, you know what? You're just going to have to pretend to get that thoracic twist.
So that's you're being humbled by the situation here. Jesus Christ. Oh, man.
What's wrong with you guys, man?
So listen, we're going into kind of the deep dive part 2 of our show today. We kicked off the show with Richie and we talked about mindset and building resilience and how to be an endurance athlete, it's not so much about physically what we do, it's more so what we do with the mindset of what we do. But here's the question I have, which is, can you push too hard? 40% of business leaders experience burnout, boys, due to pushing too hard without rest or reflection. Richie, going to look at you to start this off, pal. The dangers of grinding without rest. Yes, resilience is the key. I get it. Resilience is absolutely the key. But there's a fine line, Rich, between pushing through discomfort and damaging yourself by ignoring the warning signs like burnout. Rich, as an endurance athlete yourself, how do you know when it's not burnout and how do you know when to keep going? And then I'm going to throw it to Johnny after that. Richie, you start first.
So one, I'm a very analytical person and I can tell if I'm stressed out and I go for a run, it's affected. And the way that I can tell is I can look at my heart rate variability. And so there's different sets of different data points that I can look at to see like overnight how my HRV or my body temperature is going to tell me if I'm in a stressful state. And the run is affected by it. It really is. And one thing that I've found is sleep is a huge indicator of anxiety. And so if I only get 4 or 5 hours of sleep and I had a hard workout day the day before, I wake up, I'm a lot more anxious. But that's just a chemical imbalance going on in my brain because it hasn't had a full reset. It's the same exact thing. It's just like a lot of us. When I start the workday, I'll look at it and I look at my watch and it's okay, 11 o'clock, lunch is coming up. 1 o'clock, lunch is coming up. Okay, I'll get in the next. And then before you know it, it's 6 p.m. I haven't eaten all day. And dude, I'm just trashed. Like I have 3 children to put to bed at night. And so the biggest thing is it's equitable, right? Everything that you do in your physical life, it's the same thing in that business life. If you don't get the amount of self-care that you need, all you're doing is taking 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And so I think that's very important is to ensure that your body and mind get a reset. And sleep is one of the best ways to do that.
100%. And I'm going to jump on this. I totally agree with everything Rich said. And just so you know, Keith, as soon as I finish up with this, I got to go to the toilet. I'm feeling dribble coming. All right. So the reason this is what I see, and I help men in this situation all the time because they're burned out because they're burning the candle on both sides.
Yeah.
And if you just go into what Rich is saying, sleep is so massive. Diet is right there too. There's self-care that needs to be done to operate at the highest level. And if you're not doing it, you're basically, even if you're doing it perfectly, you still have to manage to make sure you don't burn out. But if you're not doing it, what do you expect? Come on. Why do people say, oh, I'm burnout too? You're not sleeping, you're not eating, you're not doing the self-care you need to be that high performance person that will allow you to do your job for any length of time without complaining about burning out.
Yeah, Johnny, you go take your break, buddy. Marty, question for you, brother.
Hold on, I want to weigh in on that.
Please do.
I want to say, if you're listening and you don't prioritize your rest and your sleep, I'll give you something right here. There was a time in my life I didn't prioritize it and I burned out and I ended up falling asleep while driving and got in a really bad accident. I'm fortunate to be here. Yeah. Prioritize your rest. Since that day, I've prioritized rest ever since.
No kidding. No kidding.
Yeah, totaled the car and everything. But I didn't walk out with a scratch, surprisingly.
So if that wasn't a wake-up call for you, though, I don't know what would be, eh, Marty?
Yeah, that was a wake-up call for me. Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead. My bad, Keith.
Yeah, no, not your bad at all, because I was actually going to come to you with a question. So my question for you, Marty, is we've talked often about approaches to recovery. We've talked about mentally or physically. You've also talked about you have to convince yourself it's time to go to bed. You got to put the phone down. I got to go to bed. Marty, how do you stay diligent about your approach to recovery? And then how do you teach your clients about the importance of recovery? Because we live in a world which is so much go. You actually have to teach somebody, Marty, about recovery. You actually have to teach somebody about slowing down. How do you do that, Chris?
Yeah, it all comes down to accountability, right? So if I have a client who's not reaching their goal, we're going to evaluate everything you do. And that's the first thing I go to is sleep. Why can't you go to sleep at night? Now, obviously, some people are parents, they have kids, totally fine. The kids aren't going to bed at 11 o'clock midnight. So more than likely, probably putting the kids to bed earlier than that. So when you put the kids to bed, you go to bed. And 9 times out of 10, it's a bullshit reason why you aren't going to sleep at night. And if you have to stay up late doing something important like a work project, you probably procrastinated and waited till the last minute. So that's a wake-up call for you as well. When it comes to rest, it all comes about accountability, putting things in order and doing things the right way, and you'll be able to get the rest.
Yeah. Richie, people who set small, consistent goals are 76% more likely to achieve their long-term objectives. That comes from the American Psychological Association. Now, I know you and I have been talking offline here about, Keith, I can do 100 miles because I'm the guy that does 5 miles this week, 10 miles that week, and I get to 100. I'm not the guy who wakes up one day and says, I'm going to go do 100 and I can never do it again. So talk about this idea, Richie, about setting micro goals to build momentum towards the big one. How you break down small goals in order to make the big, massive goals like running a 100-mile marathon. Rich Ingram.
Yeah, so I think it's important in running and in racing, we have A, B, and C races. And so as you and I were talking, next year, I just identified 2 races, maybe 3. The big ones are canyons. So I have one in April, and then I have a 100-miler in November, and I might get into this other race. But nonetheless, and then there are B and C races in between there that help me get to. And so what I do is every decision that I'm making, especially like in the business world, when I ran my own business, I would frequently tell my guys, I would just walk up to a dry erase board and write a dollar sign. If every decision that we are making does not have something to do with how we're providing value, then we're doing something wrong. So it's the same way in my racing. So I have this race out in Auburn, California. Every decision that I'm making in my training environment, is this going to get me closer to that goal? And so even though I might have 2 or 3 races in between there, I have that end goal in mind, but it's those small ones that I have to make sure that I check off to get there. And so that's how I do it. I break everything up into being minute because we can't think six months. We have to have that end state of mind, and then our focus is on the building blocks to get there. So that's how I operate.
Checkpoints, baby.
Go ahead,
Right.
Johnny. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying I love it because really what it comes down to is these different stages or different goals or whatever you want to call them, boxes to check. It's like they're just, the way I look at it as goals are literally just different points that you're checking in on your journey to wherever it is you're going, because the journey never stops. You reach that goal at the top. What do? You just set another one. It's just a series of checkpoints.
That's it. Christina, as somebody who's listening in right now to this, and I know you're not an endurance athlete, but I know you're curious about. I know we've been talking, and she's been fascinated. So as we've been getting to know, as Christina, I've been getting to know Rich. Holy fuck, does he do this? Oh yeah, I know. I can do this. Yeah, I know. Christina, as you're listening to Rich talk about endurance, and as you're learning about endurance, as we're talking about endurance, as somebody from the outside leaning in, what's one thing you're taking from the conversation from Rich on achieving big goals or battling through, or just this idea of endurance and the mental mindset? Christina Flynn.
Something I've really struggled with over time is I've always tried to hit grand slam. Everything that I do, I'm always like, let's fucking go. And oftentimes, even when I play softball, I'm like, let's go. I want to hit a grand slam. Can you just fucking get on base? Can you just get on base? Because they know you can hit. They've already backed up. They're not doing what they're doing for the other girls. So they're just going to catch a fly ball. What I've had to do is really look at it from those micro goals perspective and realize, especially from an athletic perspective, Jordan wasn't winning championships when he was winning it when he was getting 25 and 30 and doing the little things all at a time to bring it all together into something much bigger. And so that's something for me that's been reiterated in this conversation, but has been really important for me as an entrepreneur to say, listen, like risk reward, if you're always trying to swing for the fences, you're never going to do the little things, and you're actually always going to have big failures and never little ones. It hurts a lot more, and it's a lot harder to come back from.
John, I got to think that's probably been a big part of your life as well through your career, strongman wrestling and bodybuilding, which is you had to hit singles constantly because you could not just get on stage and achieve the grand slam like that. That's the perfect analogy, isn't it, John? It's just a gradual procession to the top. Is that a right way for me to look at that?
In my story, so what I did was basically I stayed off the radar. I didn't really hit visibility, and this was obviously before the internet. But anyway, I just stayed off the radar. I trained, I ate, I slept. I committed to what I was doing to the point when I did hit that stage, it was just like boom. And I was able to transverse all these different arenas, so to speak, because I'd already put in the work. Now it was just a matter of taking the work and what I'd built and refining it for each different venture. So a little bit of a different approach. And keep in mind that approach came because I was insecure. I didn't believe in myself when I was younger. I actually waited too long. I should have actually started competing sooner, but I wasn't in that mindset. I still saw the fat little boy.
Richie, one last thing to close with this part of the conversation before we move into our community spotlight and work towards wrapping up the show. As someone who has faced extreme physical discomfort, and I mean that with every pun intended, frankly, Rich Ingram, how do you mentally embrace the pain and push through today? My assumption is with what you've been through in your life journey, that there's in many ways nothing that your brain can't push through. Can you talk about that, Rich?
Yeah, exactly. For me, one, again, we talk about purpose. I find purpose and I find pleasure in the pain. I know that kind of sounds weird, but that's exactly how I see growth. Nothing should be easy, right? I mean, everybody be doing it, and that sounds cliche, but I know that as soon as the pain comes, like, I'm getting better. And so every time that I'm not pain, I know that someone else is competing against me, and they're going to show up if I don't show up. That's how I keep going. And that's, you have to embrace the pain and know that it transforms you.
And that's what we do here in the lab. We embrace the pain every single day, Monday to Friday, mornings in the lab with Keith, John, C. Marty Fit, Christina Flynn, and our guests and our other co-host here, Rich Ingram, joining us on Wednesdays, brand new segment, Raw Resilience, Belief, all these principles that help you guys get going. And as we work to keep extending our show, when I started this thing back in March, it's funny because Rich, you talk about the journey, you talk about if it was easy, everybody would be doing this. And I'm very grateful for some nice words that Marty offered to me a couple of days ago. Hey, Keith, can you imagine what's going on right now with what you did live in the lab like a year ago? Is this one thing? Now we got all these things happening. Like, I know, and it hasn't been easy. Because if it's easy, everybody's going to do it. So this show keeps extending. We've been going at this thing 90 minutes now. We're going to add some more minutes to the show now. In this part of the show, we're going to move to our community spotlight. And Shinku Gold pops in and says, I love the pain, the tightness of the muscles and the growth. I agree, Shinku. I'm absolutely with you. And I thank you for subscribing to our channel. I saw you subscribe to that as well. But right now, guys, we're going to go to the community spotlight. And it's the part where we get into featuring somebody. And my ambition with this part of the show, Marty, John, Rich,